Hello again, my fellow Jeti users. Welcome back to my workshop for another of my little Harry's Jeti Clinic videos. And in this one, where I'm going to cope with someone's request for the transmitter to speak out just when the throttle is at one particular setting, i.e. in this case he wants it when it's 10% open. Now you might think, aha, that's going to be easy enough. Let's have a look at Advanced Properties, Sound of Proportional Controls, and just switch on the throttle as proportional control, say voice, and there we go. Problem is that it will speak out every time you stop moving the throttle stick. For example,
0%, 70%, -30%.
And the request is that it only speaks out when you've got the throttle at 10%. And this fails on two counts. First of all, obviously it's reading out everywhere you stop the throttle, but more importantly, it's not telling you when you're at 10%. It only tells you when you've stopped at 10%. So you've got to know where to have moved the throttle in order for it to read it out. And so you can find it fiddling about a lot. Okay, so that's not going to help us. We could change P4 to cascading logic switches so that it only switches on when you're at 10%, but again, it only tells you when you stop moving the throttle stick, and the whole point is that you want it to tell you once you've reached that 10%, not when you've already known about it because you've stopped there. Okay, so that's not going to help us. Let's switch that off. And what we want is a logic switch that will switch on purely when the throttle is at 10% and cause a voice file to be read out, which is a sound on event. So let's go here. I'll say it's going to be logic switch number 1. And the reason I'm doing it in this somewhat odd sequence of doing the sound on event rather than logic switch first is so that I can show you the effects when we get the logic switch up and running. So it'll be logic switch 1 and the file. Well, I don't have a file that says 10%, so I'll just assign the file that says 10. If you want, you could make up a specific file that says 10% or 35% or wherever it is you want the throttle to be when it warns you. So switch that on for the moment. This is what it will read out to us at the correct time.
10.
Okie doke. Right, and let's set up the logic switch. And there's a couple of options in here, and so that's why I've switched on the sounds on event first so you can see the effect of it. Let's enable it, come down. Control 1 will be the throttle, of course. I'm going to make it proportional. There we go. And what value? Well, I could say x equals the relevant number. So let's go to
10.
X equals, close that off. And what would 10% throttle be? Well, it would be -80%, because of course the whole range of the throttle control is -100 through 0 to +100. So 1/10 of the way open would be at 20% of travel, which would be -80. So let's stick that at -80. And I think we can just leave it there. The problem is going to be that the x equals -80 is incredibly precise. And you see it doesn't switch on. There's no way I can get it right there, because x equals -80 is x equals -80.0000 ad infinitum. -80.0000000001 fails because it's not exact. So let's come back here and say x is around about -80.
10.
There we go. It switches on. But it's still fairly narrow. We're not allowed to define how wide this is about. -80 is. It could be, is about 0.5% either side or a couple of percent either side. I'm not sure, but if I move the throttle stick very slightly, you'll see it switch on
10.
and off. There we go. So
10.
And you've got to be moving the throttle fairly slowly to stop at that point. So let's move the throttle back.
10.
And we're already out of it, you see.
10.
Okay. So although it will read out the 10 as you go through it, it's a very narrow range. You're already past it. But there you go. There's one way
10.
of doing it. We're close enough to 10.
10.
There, we can home in on it by doing that. So you would pull your throttle back until you hear it read out.
10.
And then move it slightly forward
10.
again. And you're there. Okay. Another way of doing it, gives you a little bit wider, is to say that if x is
10.
greater than minus 85,
10.
we'll say it's an AND condition, and once again P4 proportional is less than minus 75, in other words, x is somewhere between minus 85 and minus 75, so that gives us a little 10% bracket of travel, then it will work.
10. 10.
And as you can see, the range of travel that it triggers is a little
10.
bit more.
10. 10.
So it just gives you a bit option choice. I think I'd probably go for the first one. It's near enough. It'll read out as you go through it, and then you just move the throttle back. It'll trigger it again. This one leaves you a little bit of a wider bracket in which it will be true, and it's not going to read it again if you're
10.
within it.
10.
Move the throttle slightly, still within it, doesn't read it again. So there's two ways of doing it. I think I would choose the first method of just the x is a roundabout and the value that you want. Okie doke, have fun with that, folks.